Welcome, my dear friends and colleagues, to our practitioner-only conference call, hosted as always from our headquarters in New York. This is Sylvia Singer, and with me is my husband, Rolf Singer.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello. We have muted all of you because it's too loud. But when the time comes, when we go over your questions that you sent in to us, I will unmute, and hopefully it's not too loud in the background. What a turbulent 3 weeks we just had. I want to start out with telling you that we just came back from Germany, and we met with many business partners at our office in Germany from within the European continent. In trying to come back from a turbulent trip over into Paris, France, we missed our flight connection. We had to stay another day, and by the time we finally got into New York, we hit a major snowstorm. Many of you have maybe been through it yourself, or have read about it, heard about it in the news, but boy, when your comfortable standard of living is being taken away, 5 days, no heat, no water, no electricity. It was very cold, quite confusing. And all of this for our family with 3 children and 4 animals. I am so glad we have the heat back on. We don't have to shiver as much anymore. And how important it is that we become more independent and self-sufficient. But, well, this is a whole other discussion. I welcome all of you again to our conference call. The layout of our call, as I said before, will be muted because of background noise. We have 100 on-the-mat practitioners on this call from Canada, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Panama, Singapore, and from many states within the United States. What may interest you is that most of you are a medical professional holding the title of MD, DO, PhD, ND, DC, NRN. We have a variety of different energy workers as well as private individuals using on-the-mat on themselves and their families with us on the call. And today's call, as you have seen in our e-blast, will focus on Module 1. Should I go on to loudspeaker for that role? So Module 1, also known as the Specific Frequency Module or Specific Frequency List 1. In most of your manuals, there are older ones and newer ones. There is a US version and there is an international version. But in most of these manuals that you are holding, you will find the specific frequency list on page 15. And now I'm going to go on to loudspeaker so Rolf can talk with me. Okay, when you look at the chart, we have about 400 different frequencies within this module. This is simply another frequency list within the 4 modules that we can access, and we use these specific frequencies to work with 2 frequencies at one time when we are in a therapeutic session with the patient. I want to say that when Rolf invented on-the-mat about 16 years ago, 17 years ago, this list, I believe, was the cornerstone of what on-the-mat was based on. These frequencies were compiled by you?
No, it's actually not a compilation. It's actually a mathematical structure. So the idea was with on-the-mat, and especially to reflect in Module 1, that we work with frequencies, we apply frequencies, and because it's very difficult to know what kind of frequency a patient needs, we use the feedback. So on-the-mat is built with this structure of frequencies, which is coming from, it's actually the tone structure, like you know from musical instruments and so on. And it's the same thing. If you want to run through a big range of frequencies, you have to have a grid. And so we use the grid of the music. And music is the structure of tones. It's a mathematical structure which is easily to build and to use. And it makes a lot of sense because it's built on harmony,
And harmony, you mean sound, like there's a lot of publications out there, that the whole universe is really built on sound. So you took the philosophy of sound, tone, color, and all of that within a mathematical construction?
This function goes back to Pythagoras. Pythagoras made the statement of the triangle with the different
quadrants.
Yes, and so that's actually the basis of music, of a harmonic structure, and you will find this also in architecture. Very back in the medieval, it built very much with this structure. You have certain differences in the dimensions, and it's a mathematical structure, and it sounds harmonic to us, or it looks harmonic to us. So there's something more behind it. And if you look electronically, if you have waves, let's say sine waves, and you have this step in, then you can easily see waves, they are harmonic, they support each other. And waves, they are not harmonic, they don't support, they limit each other. And this is...
They obstruct each other,
yes.
They limit,
yes.
They bounce off each other, rather than being in alignment.
Yeah, you could say they eat each other up, They eliminate each other.
But sometimes you need chaos and sometimes you need harmony.
That's right.
And we never know what the body needs. So in you, again back to my original question, when you came up with this list, why you did a mathematical calculation, did you not also use some peer-reviewed literature and combine what you have known from your previous engineering and development career and the traditional Chinese medicine approach and also the current Western medical approach, and have use that sort of as a basis from which to build?
These are actually two different things, The idea, the base idea of Ondamed is just to apply frequencies and watch the biological system, how it responds to it. But this, as you know, is not enough for people, because they always want to know what is it, even if it's not necessary and even if it's not beneficial. But this is the problem we have. We wanted to know what is it. So we, on the one hand, it's this very logical and mathematical structure to enable you to go through the frequencies, to watch the biological system to respond, and just treat. Just apply the frequencies where the response comes up. So, but in order to give you more tools to play with, we of course also compiled all the a lot of literature, which then was relating to frequencies, to colors, to tones, and we came up with this structure. It's actually a compilation, and with this compilation we then, we made a decision. Red is hard, let's say, we put the color into a relation to a tone, and the tone actually the frequency. So we have tone C, which is red, which is...
if you look, if I may interrupt, if you look with us, it would be ideal. Maybe next time we'll have a webinar rather than a conference call so we can post that online, we can see it with us. But for now, why don't we do the old-fashioned way? Look at your frequency chart on page 15, found in most of your manuals on page 15. On the bottom, you'll see your color chart, and you see numbers, on the very bottom, numbers 1 through 24. And above the color, you see the numbers 1 through 12. Why don't we start there and tell our practitioners what this means? I'm sure they have had questions from the technicians or they're a technician themselves, and I'd like to know, what does that mean? What do these numbers mean on the bottom?
So let's start with the second line, 12. So as you may know, if you go to a piano and you look at the keyboard, then we talk about octaves. Octaves means actually 8. And we here we have 12 tones, and also the piano has 12 tones. So this is a historical thing, because the octave normally has 8 tones, but because we have the tempered piano, tempered, yes. we have more than 8. We have actually 12. So they are equal in their distance, and so you can play piano in all different tunes. That's something historical. And so now we have...
If I may say, above the 1 through 12, you'll find the letter C, 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 and that simply means C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and C. But what we have used here is the German note tone structure. It's not the international.
The German labeling.
The labeling, yeah.
Oh,
there is no H on a piano. It will be A sharp and B. But that's what it is. Very simple. It's nothing that is mysterious. This is a mathematical calculation, and frequencies, as we've always said, is sound, is color, and is mechanical action. So we have the C to a B. We have 1 to 12, and what are the half steps? 1 to 24. So
when we use the module 1, we always use 24 steps instead of 12. We use 24 because it just makes the most sense in order to have smaller steps, but also be fast enough to cover the frequency range. So this was actually a practical thing.
So let me back up. To make it shorter, you mean we're not jumping from 1 hertz to 8 hertz to 16 hertz? What do you mean by making it shorter? What does that mean?
If you go from one tone to the next, you have, let's say, a big difference. So it was, in our opinion, it was too much for the continuously testing. So we took one step in between.
Can you explain that maybe? I understand.
Yes.
I think you already but express it in terms of hertz. Just give an example. Instead of jumping from 8 hertz to 16 hertz, it would be 8.
No.
Sorry. Give me something else.
Okay. So 16, let's say 16 hertz or 8 hertz is our tone C. When we go to 16 hertz, we are again at tone C, because this is the double of the frequency. This means it is a complete octave with our 24 steps in between, or with our 12 steps, depending on our grid we use.
I see, okay. So we have all the little steps like we see on C1, which is on the left-hand side found next to the C column.
Yeah.
So you go on the bottom of the page, there's a lot of stuff on this page, but if you follow me, You have the red circle, or the circle, what that is called?
Oval.
An oval circle. And it's got feet, it's got heart, and then you wind your finger up and you start at 0.12 all the way to 16,384 hertz. That is the column T. And if you then wander up to, let's say you go up to 8 hertz, and you bring your finger all the way over to 15.54, those are the 24 steps that you're talking about.
Exactly.
All right, we got it. And I'd like to encourage you, if you have any questions while we walk you through this list, write them down, and we'll talk about your questions in a little while. Okay, so we have the correlation of sound, of the mathematical calculation, and now you have said that you have used different literature aspects to attach an organ with it, an organ system with the color, with the tone structure. If you talk to an Oriental medical doctor who's trained in TCM, of course they're going to tell you, this is not quite right. The kidney may not be yellow or whatever else it is. Because it's not really based on TCM. It is based on a combination. East meets the West, so to speak. And something that made most sense to you in a mathematical calculation. Not what made most sense in what maybe the traditional Chinese medicine professionals have used for thousands of years.
If you go to the color and you even go into scientific words with color, then you will see that color is something very subjective. So even in the scientific world, everybody knows color is a very difficult story because color is recognized differently.
Effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, my green may be very different from 1,000 other people's green.
And so, and if you look to the physical structure of the color itself, it's also not linear. So if you look to our
oval circle
or grid, you have this one octave in the middle, and this one octave also symbolizes.
Referring to 8 hertz to 15.54 hertz.
Yeah, and this also covers all the colors. So now, if you just imagine, you go up 44 octaves, which is a lot, but exactly this many octaves are then leading you to the real color, which is 300 to 800 about nanometers, and there you have also in one octave you have all the colors we see, and you see them only in one octave, even if there is all the range up, everything electromagnetically, but only this little fraction you can see. And in this fraction we have then the different colors. These different colors we are we could calculate them. I could we could calculate the colors and then get a frequency. But this calculation then wouldn't make sense because the distribution of the colors makes no sense in a way. The wavelengths are showing the color. So we then have to accommodate this, and we have to equalize the distances in between the colors, so at the end it makes sense to use it in our medical settings.
We just got a couple of emails. Christine just handed me a little note. I'm sorry you're having a hard time hearing us. We're on a speakerphone, but now we have switched to actually holding the receiver next to our heads. So we'll be swapping back and forth our receiver so that you can hear us better. If you have any difficulty, since you're all muted, just either call Christine on another line at extension 125 or email her, and she will get the message to us. So we'll continue to ramble on here. We have covered the aspect of color. I mean, this is an aspect in physics that we could talk about for weeks and weeks. And what I want to say also is, there's a lot of people or companies that want to mystify, not demystify, but mystify the word frequency. And I always find it important to tell people that frequency is nothing more than repetition over a certain amount of time. So if you say this is a frequency treatment, but that really doesn't make much sense, because a frequency, for example, 2 hertz would mean 2 times per second. So if I knock on my desk here, so that would sound like this. 2 hertz. There's nothing mysterious about hertz. It is simply a repetition of a certain stimulus, of a certain action per second. So if we scan our patients through these 400 different frequencies, again it is up to the pulse biofeedback to give us the identification of which frequency is most significant. Yes,
I may have to add some information to that. So Silvia just said, frequency is just a repetition, and that's right. But that's exactly the point we have to continue. So if you do something with frequencies, you have to know what you are doing. If you are knocking on a table, or if you just imagine something, or if you use electrical stimulation, then there is a lot more to know what you are doing with a frequency. So OnTheMed is actually using electromagnetic impulses, and these impulses are also then repeated, and the frequency then is the amount, the repetition of these impulses. So you have to imagine you hold your hand applicator in your hand and you point to a tissue area. And so now the OnTheMed applicator has a very specific way to deliver energy. So if you then speak from the frequency related to OnTheMed, it means there are little circulating currents induced in the tissue where you point to. And this energy impulses, they are also induced in the different layers of the tissues. So it's not dependent on conductivity. It's more dependent where you're pointing to, because these are focused fields and they have a certain direction how they are activated. And so by moving the applicator along your body, you have really specific areas targeted. And these areas then are stimulated by these little circulating currents, depending, of course, then on the repetition, on the frequency, right and left, like we do, especially now in this module 1.
Okay. Very good. So if we have we covered most of what's on the frequency list, you think?
Of course, there's more. Of course, there's more to say. Again, we showed the colors, we showed the letters to the tones, and we show the organs. So these organs are then, a relation we had to choose, and which makes most sense. And this may help you when you assess the patient and you find certain things, it may help you to look deeper into a certain area, into an organ system and so on. It's not something which is, you would say, scientific, but it helps you. It's a part of communication. So you know these frequencies are related to certain organs, and the patient is responding to. And this guides you to look deeper into and create relations and then act on these relations. So this is very important. And actually, a frequency itself, in general, has no meaning. So the meaning comes later. The meaning is something we give the frequency. And in my opinion, I wanted to stay away from a meaning to a frequency, because most of the time it's not helpful. So you wanted to have a stimulus. You wanted to use the stimulus to help the patient to overcome something, to overcome stagnation. That's mainly it. And help him to find also relations between the areas you find and his condition, whatever this may be. But without telling him a name which may impact him with a meaning, you are able to help him overcome his stagnation, and you may be able to help him to find himself, to find the weak point where his body is hesitating or is maybe weakened, looking away. So that's mainly it. So you want to just help and guide without labeling. Another important point of the frequency is also to impact your nervous system. And impacting the nervous system helps, depending what kind of frequencies, which range you use or which modulation, then and relating to programs, helps the nervous system to just relax. If you may imagine, one important point is, in this kind of stagnation, this stagnation also is part of our ability to concentrate, to relax, or to have a deep sleep, or to be high focused. This is a mechanism which is mostly then limited and impacts frequencies in a certain range, may impact this and may infiltrate into the body, into the electrical system of the body, and create a different state of awareness, or lead to a different state of awareness, just by destruction. Just by irritating the system, and then the system readjusts itself again.
In other words, we help them to break a pattern that may be stagnant, unhealthy. Your goal always was not to label the patient, not to go with a label that in the field of medicine, this is how the conventional medical doctors are trained. You find a disease label and you then provide a remedy against it, a pharmaceutical, a drug, or it could be a homeopathic remedy that they go by the same concept. Now, while many devices out there, most of them, their focus is to label the patient with a certain disease, with a certain name, such as you have fibromyalgia, you have Lyme disease. But look, at the end of the day, we don't really know what's going on with that patient. We don't know why fibromyalgia set in or Lyme disease is present. We don't know where all of this started, where did this disconnect start. And just to focus on Module 1, it is, while it provides us with the information of color, and some of you they love to work with color. Most of you are not familiar with the use of color. So it is not that important because it's built into the system anyway, especially when you use the visualization software and you let the patient view as you scan through the frequencies. The patient views the screen and visualizes the frequency in color, represented from hertz into color. So that will further enhance also the biofeedback loop. And by finding the frequency where the patient corresponds with the most, reacts to the most, we're able to identify not only the frequency, but as you just said, Rolf, it may help to identify, this frequency has been correlated with the heart. But by no means, and this is a very important message, it does not mean that the patient has heart problems. Not at all. This is not the on-the-med concept. The on-the-med concept is to simply find a therapeutic stimulus that will help stimulate tissue and help improve metabolism functions, and thereby setting all kinds of other responses in action. This is a domino effect, and of course the lymph system will be involved. We'll have the immune system involved, because this is a reaction that physiology will kick in. So if we have some of you will, like Dr. Kessler, he of course practices medicine in Germany. Since this is not only a United States phone call, I do want to talk about this in an international setting. And I say that because in the United States, on-the-med is regulated at this time as a biofeedback system, whereas in other countries we have regulatory approvals for being for example, in Australia, a pain management device. We are in Europe, we are a device that is a treatment device to help regulate the body, the system. There are, different countries have different medical or different regulatory procedures. When you hear that there's an FDA equivalency in Europe, that is absolutely wrong. There is no FDA equivalency. I'm bringing all of this up because recently I've had emails from people that say, there's a device out that it does this and that and the other thing, and it's got the equivalency of FDA approval, but there is no such thing. There is in Europe, and we are from Europe, it started in Europe, you can trust the information that we give you. You have a CE mark, but that is done by a different regulatory system, not a health ministry, not a health department. Now, in Korea and in China, we actually are also regulated. It was very difficult to get the regulation in place, but we have received it. And since we have Ulrike K. on the phone as well from Singapore, I do want to mention that we have different status in different countries. But in the United States, we are limited to being a biofeedback system in treating with stress and stress-related disorders, which is not at all a problem, because stress and stress relation is in every disease. And since the concept of on-the-med is not to treat disease, but to treat the patient, it just falls perfectly in line with being a biofeedback system, listening to the body's response to an incoming stimulus. And in today's phone call, we're focusing in on the stimulus coming from Module 1, over 400 individual frequencies that we scan through within a minute. We scan through the frequencies while the patient is wearing the neck applicator. We feel the radial pulse. And most of you have been trained, you know it's not a cardiac reaction, it is not the cardiovascular system. We're not counting beats per minute. We're simply feeling on the radial pulse, because it's a comfortable and convenient position to feel, ideally with the tip of your thumb, since there's several reasons for that. I know you're trained not to feel the pulse with your thumb. You need to use your 3 fingers. We know all of that. We didn't come up with this concept. It was Noget in France, a physician in France, who came up with this in the 70s. And he was an MD. He practiced auricular medicine. And it is the tip of the thumb and the tip of the tongue. They're the most sensitive places, they say, on the body. And, of course, the tip of the thumb is a more ideal feeler than the tip of the tongue. But hey, it's your device. You can be playful and test things out and see if you can feel. I've never tested that, Wolf. Have you? No. Yeah, not this one. So there are other spots on the body where you can feel the reaction of the pulse, but this one is a good one. You know, you lightly feel on the radio pulse, and you scan through. Once you enter program 11 into memory, you then push the right button. You start scanning through quickly. It's the speed bump theory. The faster you go through the frequencies, the more impact. The faster you drive over the speed bump, the more impact you will feel in your car. So going too slow might just confuse you, because then everything becomes a reaction. You don't have to be afraid, because the reaction will come to you. And if you, and whatever that reaction means, I've got some questions in whether the fading is as important as the increasing of the pulse amplification, and absolutely we're looking for a pulse reaction. You know, in the beginning of my on-the-med days, I felt the fading of the pulse more than the increase in the spike. So today I can tell you that I'm only listening, so to speak, I'm only feeling for the increase in the amplification of the pulse. So by feeling the reactions, you go quickly, you then track back to where you have had a reaction, you enter that one in. Again, I'm repeating, you can reproduce the reaction by simply scanning quickly through and then going back to the one where you think you felt something. Because when you think you felt something, it's because you already felt something. So don't challenge yourself. Just go back, feel it, grab it, enter it in, and then continue to run through it. And by the end, by reaching 31,835 hertz, you may have entered 9 frequencies. You then push the right button again. Then you see 9 frequencies. Okay, you see number 9 on the bottom display. You now go slower, because now you need to sort of qualify which pulse reaction is the most significant one, is the strongest one. And as you identify, it may be the third one on the list, or on the lower display, and you store that in by pushing the green button. Repeat the same process on the left side. This process ideally shouldn't take longer than a minute or 2. So now you have found your 2 most significant frequencies. You know, all of the frequencies will provide a therapeutic stimulus. You can never go wrong. Anything coming out of on-the-med provides a therapeutic stimulus. But we want to know which one would evoke most response in the patient, so that we don't dance to the right and to the left. We want to hit it right on. So once you have those 2 most significant frequencies, you then go into the pushing star and MS to test for time. If you have a child, ideally you just, when you work with adults, then you can just keep the set time for 12 minutes. It's pre-stored for you. So then you go to pressing the start button and the INT button, the intensity button, to see at which intensity, how loud does the body want to listen to the stimulus. You press again start INT, you bring it down, you scroll down from 3.5, the preset, to it's 1.0, and you dial up, and once you have that first reaction, you store that reaction into memory by pushing the green button. There's no need for going higher. You want to get that first reaction as we have learned from homeopathy, more is not better, and we don't want to overstimulate. We want to find just the right intensity level. So we store that in. If you don't want to take the time, 3.5 is a good setting. You can just go with it. And now you push start. Why start? Because if you don't push the start button, you're going to run all the frequencies that you just entered in. In telling the computer to only use the two last stored in frequencies, the ones that are most significant, we need to tell the computer only to use those two, and we do so by pressing the start button and then the start button. So now you're ready to go, and you do what you always do, feeling the pulse, scanning from top to toe, almost painting the patient. You can have him laying down, or you have him sitting down, and then I always like to have him sitting down, and then have him stand up, turn around, and I give a quick scan down the spine, boom, open it up. I always say it's using a handheld applicator, and then I start again at the head and come down on the spine. Then I go right, left to reach into all the areas on the back, and I go as low as the sacrum. And whenever I find a reaction to the pulse, I would tap the patient's body and say, I have a reaction here. We don't know what that reaction represents. It could be muscle, it could be bone, it could be nerve, it could be skin. We are really not interested in labeling what we're finding. We are interested in finding the location of where a reaction takes place. So once again, going back to the same setup of what Rolf intended for this device, to not make it a diagnostic device that doesn't interest us. We don't need it. We don't need the diagnosis. While you, as a medical professional, need your diagnosis, by all means, go what you always do. Do and what you always do. But OnTheMed doesn't need that. We are standalone. All we want to know, we want to complement your diagnosis. We want to complement your existing therapeutic protocols. And OnTheMed will allow you to find the area of underlying dysfunction. Now, underlying dysfunction could mean a lot. It could mean that this is an inflammation. It could mean an infectious process. It could mean there is an old injury sitting. It could mean it's a scar tissue. It could be in the most profound sense. And Rolf and I love to work on the profound levels, of course. But there's no need to do so. I mean, you can take OnTheMed as deep as you want. And if you want to take it deep, then you will appreciate us saying that you can identify, maybe without knowing that it is, an area of emotional trauma, of life shocks, as Valerie Hunt calls it, life shocks, or it's just a simple emotional trauma that has occurred in this lifetime. And you may have been 3 years old, you may have been 25 years old. It is up to you the patient, not you the practitioner, but you the patient, to connect with that trauma. So there's no need to become a psychotherapist, since all of that is built into this genius idea that Rolf had. And while you scan the body, you find an area. You may do what Dr. Kessler has brought to us, which is the MCMF method. Identify that area that quiets all the other reaction areas. It's like finding that main window, that treatment window. And by finding that window, you may be surprised. It may just be an old injury, but it may be something where the patient says, well, I don't understand why you're holding the applicator here. But you will explain as a practitioner to the patient, well, this is where when I use the applicator toward that, let's say, left shoulder, and then I come back to the other reaction areas, that left shoulder then made all the other areas quiet, all the other responses quiet in the body, which means you found the main focus. And all of this is being taught at the advanced training, which again will happen in June. I'll get into that later. So holding the applicator in an area, and the patient cannot immediately connect with it. He may or she may have come to you with irritable bowel syndrome, why is that practitioner holding the hand applicator to the left shoulder area? But as the stimulus evokes responses from within the tissue, it may just happen in a first visit that the patient suddenly connects with a memory that has been painful, a memory he or she has decided to not connect with for quite some time. And as the memory appears in the patient's mind, since we have vibrated that area, we have brought life into that area, if you wish. We have brought attention to that area. A memory comes up, a picture comes up, a smell comes up, a sound comes up, etc. A feeling comes up. That's all part of memory. And the patient may start to cry, may start to laugh. We've had a case in South America where we got called. Patient cannot stop laughing. That's quite a problem. But this patient was an 18-year-old, very depressed individual. Can you imagine? That cork opened, and it opened wide. So you never know what happens. And the patient then has a choice of holding on to it, letting go of it. But something profound has happened at that moment of connecting, because it connects you to a piece of yourself that you have decided not to connect with for a long time. And for me, I always believe in a trauma has happened before the age of 5. A disconnect has happened, and this is why people present different symptoms later on in life. And often it gets us to those underlying traumas, those underlying, whether it's in the physiology, in the emotion, or in the mental, it's all connected. And Module 1 gives us the beautiful work with 2 frequencies, no more than 2. We never send more than 2 frequencies through any of the applicators at one time. But Module 2 creates many more frequencies, one after the other. Module 3 only 1 frequency, and Module 4 again 2 frequencies. But this is a very specific list, and I recommend it to be used whenever you can, because it has a more direct signal into the body than using Module 2. So I think at this time I'm going to unmute the audience. Oh, one moment. Yeah, we have many more questions. Yes. You can answer them. I don't know if you can. Let me see. Okay, so you want to go to these first? All right. Dr. Keith Holden, we hold you high in regards. Thank you for sending this in. He says, say a patient comes in for Undermed 2 days in a row, and when performing Module 1, a number from the gallbladder column, the frequency chart, comes up both days. Does that imply energetic issues related to the gallbladder might exist, and that I should consider applying program 78, the liver gallbladder, in Module 2? Or should I only use number 78 if there is a pulse response to it? Now, if 2 days in a row, this is my response, and everybody will have a different response to this. Just know there's no one answer. But I'm going to give my response, and if you want to change it, Rolf, you can, then I'll give you a change. So, yeah. So, good question. If the gallbladder in 2 individual testings shows up as a frequency in Module 1, then that would suggest that some stagnation is absolutely happening within the gallbladder area. It might not stem from the gallbladder, but certainly the patient is benefiting from a gallbladder-related frequency. You see how I turned that around? It's not that the gallbladder has an issue, but the patient is benefiting from a gallbladder-related frequency. And you can play with that. I absolutely agree that if he responds to a gallbladder-related frequency, that I believe program 78, liver gallbladder, may be very helpful. You can take it to that level, Dr. Holden, but you could also just test through and see, what program does my patient benefit from the most. If you don't have much time, absolutely, why not go to program 78, since we would assume that program 78 has gallbladder, liver related frequencies built in. Or it might have, on the other side of the scope, it might have whatever is the counterpart to the gallbladder, liver. So do you have anything else to add?
That's actually the principle of programs, you know. If you have, let's say, a gallbladder program in the organ systems, then you don't treat the gallbladder by alone. You go like you may know from the Chinese element system, or the you know, you have always the different aspects how organ systems affect each other. So if you wanted to treat one, then you also have to go to the others, and that's how programs are set. Okay.
I hope this helps. We go to the next question from dear Maria Stab. Hello Rolf, is there an easy way to identify which frequencies from the frequency chart list are grounding energies and which are universal energies when we harvest them in everyday life? I normally identify meridian with low energy, and knowing which energy is lacking would be good to know. So, yes.
I wouldn't go with one frequency. In this case, I would use a general program. I would rather test, let's say, the revital programs, or just go to, let's say, a middle one, program 15. And then, if you have time for the patient, then you just take the handheld applicator and you move the handheld applicator from the forehead along in the middle line of the head downwards the spine until the sacrum. Slowly, you may circulate it, and this helps to open up, to give relief, whatever happens on this way. Very often there are limitations along the line, and so this would be, in my opinion, would be a good solution.
I think another good one is program 47, program 48, as you all know, helping with geopathic stress and helping people help them ground themselves better. So that's always a good one to open the window of the stress caused by radiation coming in from satellites, from cell phones, cell phone towers, the wrong lights, etc., etc. Okay, we go. I'm going to try to unmute you because we're blabbing away here, blah blah blah. We don't hear any feedback. And we believe in feedback. So let me see if I have a lot of static. I'm going to unmute you. Yeah, I already hear the noise. And here we go. You have been unmuted. I'm going to try. If this is not a good connection, I'll be happy to mute all of you. Just let me know. Interrupt or send an email. We're going to go on to an email we received from Elizabeth Winkler Prince, and she is the marketing director for EMETA Netherlands, who works directly with Andre Legras, a dear friend of ours who we met just a couple of weeks ago again in Germany. We had a wonderful time with him. So Elizabeth asks...
Please mute us. Please mute us.
Oh, please mute us. Okay, I'll mute you. Here we go. Okay, back to Quietland, and I'm going to repeat. This is a question from Elizabeth Winkler Prince. She works hand-in-hand with Andre Legras, who we just met in Europe, a wonderful business partner of ours who we just spent lovely time with. And Elizabeth says, we ended up wondering whether there are specific frequencies within Module 1 which could be used for the treatment of dental problems, like bleeding gums, or would you then prefer preset programs such as 76, 85, or 98? Well, our answer to that, or at least my answer for now, is that in most dental settings, but by that I mean in dental offices, dentists, while we have holistic dentists use OnDoMed, we have them in the States, we have them in Europe, they usually do not necessarily go into specific frequency list 1, which is module 1, because they don't have the time before they would maybe do a procedure such as cleaning with bleeding gums. You clean, you do other procedures. A simple program such as Program 19, which was designed to help with acute inflammatory issues in the head area. Program 51, which is, as you know, Delta Durham, relaxation. And 52, which is a very good one, and Argo, which is Latin and stands for pain relief. One moment.
I want to add something. This is a very simple and also a very common use, I would say, and a very effective use with OnDoMed, because you are able to instill, the movement in the tissue, and normally if you have problems in the gums, there's limited movement. You have inflammation. So if you treat and you hold the hand, or if you stimulate the tissue better, and you hold the applicator close to the skin, or you even press into it and move slowly along the gums, and then use, let's say, Program 19, you will activate all the metabolism in this area, and you should repeat this several times, and then you will. I saw myself a big improvement by doing so, and a similar procedure you could also see in other kinds of inflammation, of course, not only with the teeth, and you don't need to test a single frequency. The frequency in general have a function like this, and important is you then stay close to the tissue. You don't stay far away, so you go there, because then the effect, the inductive effect directly into the tissue is much bigger.
Okay, thank you. Well, Program 76, 85, and 98. 76 is jaw joint, 85 also jaw joint, and 98 tissue regeneration. They're wonderful programs too. Here in bleeding gums, we would assume that there's an overload of microbes. So Module 3 would also be recommended. And of course, if you have time for Module 1, it's always good. It's always good to apply. Okay, next question. This is from Donna Sims. And let's see. Here we wanted to ask, what is the reason for this question? So we have to unmute, because in order to properly answer this question, we need to understand the source of this question. And here, so I'm going to read the question, and Donna, if you will please unmute yourself by simply pressing *6. And I'm going to read the question: where would I find reliable published information on the frequency of the body? I have a friend who says that a healthy body has a frequency of 60 megahertz or higher, and that when the frequency drops to 58 to 9, you get a cold, 57 the flu, in the 40s cancer. Is there anything to this? If so, does OnDoMed raise your frequency? Is that part of how it promotes health? Also, is there a difference between frequency of the body and frequency of the cells? Is there published information on the cells? Thank you so much for your help, Donna Sims. Donna, do we have you? Donna, if you can press *6 to unmute yourself. Oh, there she is. That's lovely. That works.
I'm on the line. Well, I think the question says it all. I don't know whether it's really relevant to this Mod 1 discussion, but if the answer is, well, there's a difference between the frequency of the cells and the frequency of the body, that's I can understand that, but I'm still curious about, whether OnDoMed is having any effect on the body as it has an effect on the cells. I assume it must.
So, may I just talk a little bit around the subject? To say the body has a frequency, in my opinion, it's very limited. That's why I built the OnDoMed concept in the way I did. So it's like you say, you have a favorite music piece, and then you would ask, which frequency does it have? Communication. You have a communication with someone. Which frequency? A communication has so much information, and the piece of music has so much of information and tones and sounds. You can't imagine how much. And the same to a biological system. And that's why this approach to say, this has this number of frequencies, so this is healthy, or this is not healthy, may only have a symbolic value. It may have a value to someone who is able to test something with his own method, but it doesn't transfer to others. I can't tell you the frequency is this or that. But what I can tell you is, if you treat a patient and you find underlying dysfunctions and you treat them, you will raise the patient's function, vibratory function, or in general. And this is maybe the meaning of this. Don't take it too serious if you hear from people saying, this has this frequency, this has that frequency. It's not right. It's not really correct. So when we speak from frequencies that is OnDoMed, we find out which stimulus is helpful for a patient, but not which frequency the patient has. This is something totally out of our realm. That's nothing we can evaluate. So did this help for you? Yeah, she didn't. Are you here? No. Okay.
Okay. We are vibratory human beings, and to put a signature tone onto human beings or animals or plants, I think is a dangerous thing to do, because while maybe a yogi master can sit there for months and not move, will have a different vibratory signature, much higher or much lower, and us working and having stressful lives and running around, and we're constantly changing. Does it really matter if we're at 50 or 48? Not in our opinion, but that's our opinion. If you speak to people with radionics, I've heard radionic specialists speak about that OnDoMed is in the highest vibratory tone. We're over 100, and I don't really know what that means, but maybe it means something to some of you who are trained radionics technicians. One moment.
This has nothing to do with the frequency. In radionic, you have rates, and this is the original term. So you have the radionic people. They have created a scale, and they test against this scale. But it has nothing to do with frequency. And originally, other than people translate it into frequency, which is not correct and which is not beneficial to the concept. And
we know that has deviated. But back to OnDoMed. So while there is a difference between the frequency of the body and the frequency of the cells, because it's a combination. It's a symphony. You have all of the cells. Cells create tissue, tissue create organs, organs create the whole physiology within us, so to speak. It's going to be different second to second, and location to location, cell to cell, tissue to tissue, etc. So I hope we have answered this question. Then we go on to Kathleen Lippris. So wonderful to get an email from you. Let's see, what do the numbers on the personal frequency chart correspond to? For example, heart is number 1. But what does number 2 stand for, and so on? Many have asked me this question. I don't rightly know how to answer. But I think we've covered that. I think we have, and if not, then Kathleen, just shoot us another email, and we'll respond to it, whether now or later. Next to our dear friend Peter Holick in Florida. And yes, your weather is not much better than ours up here. Haha. Question for conference. Would you think it beneficial to take all of the frequencies found on the right and on the left and program all of them into the water? I have tried this, and I believe in some cases it helped. Your thoughts? I think it's a great idea, because when you scan through the 400 plus frequencies and you identify, let's say, 8 on the right and 4 on the left, then by using all of them, by charging your water, or charging the patient's water, essentially you've created your own program. I think it's a great idea, and we give you green light. Let us know how that continues to work for you. Boy, we got a lot of questions. This is a good conference call. I love it. Next one from Jim Browner. Hello, Jim. Relating frequencies left and right to organs. On the commonly used Module 1 frequency sheet, how does one interpret frequencies which show as in between 2 listed organs? What are we learning if the frequency is between 2 organs? I understand exactly what you're saying, and I didn't talk about it because I had pre-read your question, so I didn't want to touch on it beforehand until I read your question, Jim. Thanks for that. That's a great question. So if we have, let's go back to the chart, page 15. Let's assume we found 8.23. And 8.23 lays between the heart and small intestine. So you would either tell your patient or you would just make a note for yourself. This is middle of the road. It's between heart and small intestine. It's not smack on the heart or on the small intestine. So suggesting that there is not a real concern that any issue, any stagnation may be happening in the heart or in the small intestine. But I can tell you what, we have tested one of our friends out in California on the on-demand. I don't want to release his name. And for him, 8 hertz showed up on the right and 8 hertz showed up on the left. When I see this, then I would assume that there is something definitely happening in the heart area. Something is going on, but it doesn't mean that I now have to treat the heart area. I need to scan and find where the patient responds the most, because maybe it's in the kidney system. As we all know, or most of us know, that the kidneys cool the heart. So we always need to go from the perspective of not knowing anything, letting the patient guide us. The pulse serving us as a compass. Disease is a complicated and confusing thing. And we just scan and we find where do we need to place the applicator to help this patient with the therapeutic stimulus the most. But I can tell you, if the same frequency, whether it's the same frequency or it's in the same organ line, then there certainly is more seriousness, more potential for a problem in that area.
If this happens, then you just should give this fact more attention and look more closely to the patient, and maybe do other tests or support the situation with other methods. That's what I would recommend.
Okay. All right. And And we have taken care of this one. We go on to Marion Daly from Canada. Hello, Marion. Nice to see you writing in. Often when scanning the body for the MF main focus, the area of MC main complaint does not show up. Also other areas where pain is experienced do not show. Originally, I was told that the ornament could locate such areas even when the practitioner was not made aware of them. Absolutely correct, Marion. While we say we're able to identify areas of dysfunction, that may be an area of pain, but as we know from the world of deferred pain, where the pain is actually leaking from doesn't mean that this is where the pain is felt at. So we need to go with that concept. Where the pain area is felt does not mean that this is the origin of the pain, the inflammation, the infectious process. As Dr. Oshman always lectures, we talk about Cellier pouches. Dr. Cellier found that there are inflammatory barricades in the body that although maybe an injury has healed and we do not feel the pain anymore, that does not mean that inflammatory pouch has been completely healed. And if it hasn't healed, then that area in the body is like an egg. It's sitting there, and it's like a broken eggshell, and there is a toxicity coming out of that broken eggshell. So it is more important to find the deferred pain area than it is to find pain areas.
Yeah, especially if you have chronic situations. I would say, if you have acute pain, then most likely you have to treat in the pain area or around the pain area. But if you have chronic pain, then most likely the reason for that pain is not at the pain area. Even if I would go even further, I would say if you only treat the pain area, you may even increase the pain. So that's why it is important to look for the responses and find the origin of something.
Okay. Pam Work sent in a question. Hello, Pam. I'm finding that with some patients, the pulse will become strong and the frequency remains strong until another frequency causes the pulse to fall away. Both pulse qualities are different from the norm when I start Module 1. Does that mean all the frequencies are needed by the body, or is it just at the change that I record the frequency? Well, first I want to make sure that, Pam, you go fast enough. As I have explained before, the speed bump theory, don't go too slow or everything becomes a reaction. Move fast and then track back to where you found that reaction. And it doesn't matter if it is an increase or an increase in the pulse's intensity or a fading in the pulse's intensity. It is almost like there is a vacuum before the spiking, if you know what I mean. So whenever there's a reaction, it means that there's a reaction and we need to store that frequency. And at the end, we will be left with only one frequency on the right and one frequency on the left. So I hope that I have answered your question. And if not, again, send us an email. Okay, next question we have from Connie Galley. Okay. Dear Sylvia, I'm excited about the next teleconference, and I'm going to take your older note because I have kept it. So I know you sent in a new note, but I'm going to go with the older note. It's more extensive. So I'm excited about the next teleconference. Nevertheless, I would like to know in advance, in the case you have that information, if the 2 Hertz frequency to list 1 corresponds to nerve repair as it is written by Dr. Oshman's article in Tons and Letter, June 2008. I am trying to compare this frequency list that are shown in this magazine article to the ones that appear in Ornament List 1 and List 2 preset programs, and it's difficult to get it. I still have a question which reply is pendant. May you know somebody can answer it. Where can I find all the human body frequencies in detail? A book, a website, many thanks for your help. Now, This is going to be a longer reply. While James Oschman has done a lot of research, and other people have done a lot of research in the field of electromagnetic field therapy, post-electromagnetic field therapy. As Rolf said before, we humans, especially in the field of medicine, tend to want to gravitate toward putting a label next to a frequency. So while we understand the necessity that this is how the human brain is working right now, this is what is considered scientific explanation, scientific backup. Yes, there are literature references, and if you go online, you may find a whole bunch of it. We, Rolf and I, don't really have looked into this, although there are, I think there was a study by MIT that showed that certain organs resonate to certain frequencies, and I also believe that from the very beginning, 8 years ago, I have actually put that on our website. Very interesting, but you need to understand that that measurement was made at one point in time, and they haven't repeated that measurement in the liver and the heart and etc. I believe in constant, different vibratory signatures, and that doesn't only come from within the body, but also from the energy field in which we live in and with which we interact with the surrounding environment. So, okay, Rolf, it's easy to say something.
This is in Townsend Letter. This, if you know this article, written by Jim Oschman. This is a compilation of frequencies from different studies, a lot of different studies, and you have to know a study, uses a device and confirms something, but it doesn't mean the frequency. If you have 2 hertz and you have nerve repair, it doesn't say 2.5 doesn't work, and it's just a compilation of studies which use the frequency, and I would say the frequency is not this important. More important is how the stimulus is applied to the system. If you're the effect of a stimulus inside the system, the tissue, has to have happened and has to have the necessary effect to create the movement and being able to unblock the stagnation, which most of the time happens. So if you have a nerve repair, I assume a lot of frequencies can help with that. So and I wouldn't just go and say 2 hertz is nerve repair or 5.9 is scars. So my approach would be finding, maybe using a program with a lot of frequencies, or then just testing and finding the response from the patient itself, and then just go there. Also, where the patient responds locally.
I just remembered I actually took that list, and I compared it to our frequency chart, and I found that there was an overlap. Like if you go into 625 hertz of its kidney, and if you go into our frequency chart, 626 hertz is within kidney. So I found more of an overlap. What? No. I found I did actually, I think it was a year or so ago, when I went through, I found a correlation. But nerve repair, we don't have nerve on here. Maybe you have to do it through the heart frequency in order to best repair nerve. So you need to go from the other direction, not just thinking you need to get a nerve frequency in order to repair nerve. It could be it could be a heart frequency that helps restore a nerve the best. So you have to just reapply your thinking. You don't just come from one perspective. Don't lock yourself in. The beauty with Ornamet is that you can come from different perspectives You do not have to apply the concept of, ABC is good for 1, 2, 3. No, because B might be good for 1 and might be also good for 3, and the patient will give us that direction. Okay, so I'm going to move on to. Thank you, Connie, for this question. And Connie actually is a foreign-trained medical doctor and works with Dr. Michael in Tennessee, and Dr. Michael is a general integrative medicine practitioner. All right, now on to Madeline Michaels, right here from New York. Hello, Madeline. Is OnDemand qualified as a legit treatment for Lyme disease? No, it is not. Since OnDemand, and I'm going to repeat myself until you have heard me, and you will not forget my voice attached to the message, OnDemand does not treat disease. And that includes Lyme disease. Since in our belief we treat the patient, and the patient has an underlying dysfunction that has caused that patient to now have Lyme disease. There's a different thinking. In the Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease is an epidemic, and we could have hour-long discussion. Lyme disease is close to my heart. I love the subject, wrote my thesis on it, and it is quite interesting to just look at chronic versus acute. Acute meningitis, there's something to it. We have got to administer antibiotics, and it's very successful. However, chronic Lyme disease is a modern disease which is spreading across the globe. And while you do not say that you treat Lyme disease, it's not necessary. You treat patients who, and you also in America, you can't say you treat patients. You may say that you use OnDemand frequencies that help stimulate the immune system to better deal with the effects of Lyme disease. So you have to just know how to speak about it. But by all means, continue to use OnDemand for patients that suffer from Lyme disease without claiming you treat Lyme disease. Okay, another question by her. What is the difference between Rice Machine and OnDemand? I will leave that discussion. I'm going to keep that note. I'll leave it for our next conference call, and I will actually discuss this as we go through Module 3. The second one, the Lyme disease protocol. We do not believe in protocols. There is no such thing. Once we had one of our trainers, Michael McNally, who was a Lyme disease sufferer himself, but after 150 hyperbaric sessions and all kinds of other treatment by doctors, including Dr. Stephen Bach, once he got on the OnDemand, he felt different. His immune system improved to the point where he became one of our trainers. He believes that there is such a thing as a protocol, but it is not sanctioned by the company. Since we do not believe in Lyme disease, how on earth could we have a Lyme disease protocol? It's not what we suggest for you to have a protocol. Just go by the pulse and use all 4 modules. Now, the third question, can microorganism frequencies be applied in each visit? Again, I'm going to leave that to our next discussion, which is probably going to be in 2 months from now. So that you go ahead, Madeline, and you can move forward with treating with pulse electromagnetic fields. Yes, you can apply in each visit, but follow the strategy that I have laid out in a recent e-blast. Only use 1 frequency at one time and recheck. Your fourth question, can one treat a group of vital organ in one treatment as a preventative or just for well-being of the client? For instance, gallbladder and liver, kidney and adrenals, heart and cardiovascular system, lungs and respiration, and so on. Yes, you absolutely can. And this is where we would like ourselves to be moved to, rather than being in the field of disease and helping illness. And I think I speak for many of you, would like to move ourselves into the preventative medicine model. And it would be wonderful to simply, also a good one is 93, since the thyroid is always involved. So 93 is a beautiful program to use. All the programs truly between 12 all the way up to program 56. These are the programs that had originally been designed by Rolf, and programs 61 and up have been designed by practitioners who have found that certain frequencies would help with certain patients suffering from similar conditions. So we're going to get into that when we discuss Module 2. So good idea, Madeline, just to apply certain programs, and best between programs 12 to programs 58 or 61. Okay, next question. Please review the smoking cessation protocol. Not here, not now. I will reserve that again for another conference call. Pictures do not coincide with description for applicator placement. Which do I follow? Good question. This has been such an involved project for us with the visualization software. Should Rolf, should Madeline follow the picture or the description?
She should follow the pulse at first, and then she should just look at the picture. You look at the picture, and you may relay them to the patient. You see the correlation. You have tested the patient, I assume, and then normally you would just also take the pulse and scan the body. But if you wanted to simplify, then you just look at the picture and you place the applicator.
Okay, that's it. From Madeline, we move on to Malou, and I don't see a last name, so Malou it will be. My question is guidance regarding treatment for Lyme disease patients. Any help with that will be most helpful. Okay, again, you've heard me say it, I don't have to repeat it. I'm very passionate about patients suffering from Lyme disease, and I recommend that you use all 4 modules. You let your intuition guide you if you believe in that and can work with that. I would recommend that if you need a protocol, start out with all 4 modules in the first session. Follow, very important in this, is to follow my new Module 3 protocol. And at the end of working with the OnDoMed, I strongly suggest, especially with patients suffering from Lyme disease or that label, that you disconnect the patient from all the applicators and you work with Bach flower remedies. I love Bach flower remedies. There are other similar remedies. I'm not familiar with them. They may just be as good. The point here is to work with the essence of flowers and to now move yourself into the help of homeopathic remedies that pinpoint certain emotional aspects of the patient. You simply feel the pulse, you scan your finger over the bottles, the vials, whatever you have. You do not go by the book. Again, you walk away from the label. You simply let the pulse guide you to which remedy responds the most. OnDoMed is not a part of this testing. It's similar to muscle testing. You can also muscle test. That's not my area. I don't like to put myself into the muscle testing. I find it much simpler to work with the radial pulse. So once you have found that remedy, you pull it out, you look at it, and let's say it's rock water. You then find it in the book. You let the patient read it. This serves almost as an emotional mirror to the patient. The patient can read the positives and negatives. They will respond, this is not me, this is me, blah, blah, blah. Something has already happened. They have read about something that will help them identify with what's going on with them emotionally. And then you drop 5 drops under the tongue. I do not believe in continuing the homeopathic remedy. I do not give a remedy bottle to the patient. It's not what I believe in, since I believe that we people, we energy beings, constantly change in our vibratory tones and signatures. So all we need to set is a stimulus, a gentle whisper of a stimulus, and see how far it can take you. And then in the second session, you may only want to do modules 2 and 3, and the module 2 includes module 4 anyway, so you're testing that through. In the third session, again, you may go back and do all 4 modules, and you can deviate as such. Okay, I hope I answered that question. And Linda Milos sent in a question. Hello, Linda. These are just general questions, not necessarily for module 1. Any suggestions for uterine fibroids, bulging lumbar discs, abdominal hernias? I have worked with people that have fibroids, and again, it is all about detoxification and improving the metabolism functions while stimulating the lymphatic flow in order for the toxins to flush out. So all 4 modules follow the same for all 4, but it's also the lumbar discs. Here I would recommend to consult with either an osteopath or a chiropractor. You need to make sure that the body is properly aligned, make sure that one leg is not shorter than the other, or vice versa, longer than the other. Same with hernias. Just make sure that you are including as many puzzle pieces as you possibly can. And the last question that I have here is from Bernie. It just came in. Bernie Rabinovich, hello. He is also the host for the Yahoo group. And since I just am onto that topic, I'd like to say that I have been quite concerned with the responses back and forth, people complaining of not being properly supported. Bernie has put up that Yahoo group to provide a platform for people to exchange themselves. And thank you very much, Bernie, for going through all the work. Bernie has a full-time job as a practitioner, and that's the problem when you have a group like this. It's not being monitored. The on-demand doesn't have the time or manpower to respond to your questions. So if you have a question that needs answer, by all means, come to your on-demand team. Email us. I am always in contact with all of you practitioners and patients on an international level. It may take me a little while because I always say my email grows like a yeast infection, and it does. But you know what? I'm going through it, and I am happy to address your questions because they need to be addressed, and I need to see your questions. And Dr. Kess is happy to address your questions. So by all means, while you are on this group, on the Yahoo group, never forget to come back to your source, and that source is your on-demand team. And Bernie, your question is, can you talk about a treatment protocol? How often should treatments be done? Every day, other day, twice a day? How many treatments total? Okay, good question. This is a generic question, and that, of course, affords a generic answer. The generic answer is ideally you apply on-demand twice a week for half an hour per session. If you have people that come to you from afar, and that, again, I have to differentiate, afar could mean people fly into you, like they do to Dr. Kessler, and other doctors around the globe. They fly into you. You only have them there for 1 week. By all means, use on-demand twice a day for 30 to 45 minutes. So if you need an hour, you then send them back into their own country, and you need to find a local on-demand practitioner for them to continue a routine protocol of 2 times a week. If the patients feel better, by all means taper it down to once a week, once every 2 weeks, to the ideal level, because we want to set people free. We want to set practitioners free too by the use of on-demand. We don't want to hook you to yet another thing. But if it feels good, why not keep on eating the good food, the good water, and use on-demand? So ideally, patients could come back for maintenance once a month. And then you could do a full workup and whatever that means to your practice. And you could work with them for an hour on the on-demand. And we would also suggest that on the other side of the coin, that when people come to you from afar, not flying into you, but having to drive maybe 1 hour to 2 hours or even longer, then spend a little time with them, spend a little more time with them, and have them come once a week, because what you don't want to do is increase their stress, because they already have enough stress dealing with not feeling well or their loved one not feeling well. But if you're up to it and they seek hope and guidance, then they may want to come back to you twice a week or 3 times a week. So you need to judge that, as you have always done during your career as a medical professional. Judge it. And as a suggestion as a treatment protocol, 2 times a week, a half hour each, and the standard care will be 5 to 12 sessions. Of course, Alndamate does not build up as drugs need to build up in the system. Every single time we apply the stimulus in a session, we help with the detoxification, with relaxing people, stress relief, with increasing their repair mechanism, bringing the electrons where they need to go, since it's the electrons that take care of the repair and regeneration of tissue. And we are increasing energy output, in other words, ATP output, in order for the repair mechanism to even be happening. We help to improve the blood flow, the lymphatic flow, and you will have noticed that when patients are done with a session, they usually seek the bathroom first, because things get into action and into movement, and all of this, we are able to help patients with their immune system functions, because that's all part. You can't have one without the other; it's all interconnected. Okay, this was the last question, and we are way over time. We're almost 2 hours into this call. I'm going to unmute, even if it is loud. But I want to hear if there are any more questions from the audience. Or, you know what, even easier, I'm not going to unmute you. If I have a question at this time, please unmute yourself. Press *6 for any questions at this time. *6.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hello.
Hi, it's Grace Provenzano from Mass.
Hello, Grace. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. I have a quick question about the kidney.
Yes.
An infarct to the kidney and dead tissue around the kidney. Would that be able to be rejuvenated?
As a generic answer, everything in the body has the potential of regeneration and repair.
Thank you, Sylvia, so much.
You're welcome. You want to say something to me?
Of course.
Sylvia?
This is a specialty. You go close, you take a program, let's say program again, 19 or 20, a generic program, and you use your handheld applicator, and you go close to the area where it's needed.
Okay, thank you, Rolf.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Yes, what's that? Who's talking?
Excuse me?
Sylvia?
Yes, no, go ahead. Yes, who is this? Who is saying Sylvia?
Monty.
Monty, hi. How are you? I'll call you later. Don't worry.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nice to hear you.
Sylvia,
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is Avery Nelson, and I have a question. Is there sometimes an advantage when you're assessing to not only using the neck applicator, but putting the matrix applicator down the spine to maybe perhaps amplify the response in the patient?
Sure, of course, the neck applicator we use most of the time, and so the other areas we use in addition. You could use the matrix applicator. If I don't use the handheld, I always would use the matrix applicator in addition.
To assess. Well, and then, of course, to treat, too. But in the assessment, you'd go ahead and use it, too, to amplify the responses?
You could do that, and as a matter of fact, it's a good point. When you've already found the areas, for example, you just leave the applicators and keep on testing. Leave the applicators where you have found areas. And generically, as you know, the spine is always an important location.
Yeah.
And if you want to do a focus session, you know that there is, let's say there is a broken wrist. You don't even work with the neck applicator. You take handheld applicator, you focus that towards the wrist.
Yeah.
And then you go and you scan through through module 1 to find those 2 specific frequencies. We've had practitioners in Europe report that the healing time of the fracture can be reduced to half the time. And practitioners in that case that I'm talking about have used only module 1. Not even going to module 2 or the other module, just module 1. And it's very successful. And then you place a matrix applicator in addition, maybe on the spine or under the feet or in the abdomen area, and then a neck applicator on the neck.
Great.
Neck applicator at the neck and matrix applicator in the lower back is actually a very generic setting, which we also recommend in with some generic programs, like autonomic nervous system.
Right.
Good question. Thank you, Avery. Hope to see you at advanced training.
Thank you.
Do we have another question?
Sylvia, or Ralph for that matter. This is Yolanda.
Hello, Yolanda. How are you?
I am excellent, except I have this ferocious headache every day, and it's driving me nuts. But aside from that, I have a question. On the chart, on page 15, it doesn't have any area showing for the head, whether it be the pituitary or the brain or for anything on the head. Why not or whatever else Ralph would want to explain on that?
This is the reason for that is this chart is relating to the organ system.
Well, the brain is an organ system, so are you saying that's different?
Yes. If you go to the Chinese medicine, the brain is not...
brain. It's not an organ. I think they have brains. No. It's not considered an organ. But there are meridians running through the brain. And my first question to you would be, if you have ongoing headaches, could it be that you have amalgam fillings in your mouth?
Well, my headaches are not the reason I'm asking. The reason I'm asking is because it's obvious that it's not on the chart, and I often wonder why there is no reflection on the head, the whole head area.
The whole head area, you have the gallbladder meridian, the kidney meridian, most meridians, or all meridians run through the head. So you need to just test through. While it doesn't tell you it is related to the head, often when there are head issues, you need to treat the gut. Because when the gut is not working right, if the gastrointestinal functions are off, your head, the juices in the head are the same as the juices in your gut, so to speak. If the juices...
I'm aware of that. I wanted to know why there was no mention to the head. That's all I wanted to know. So you can probably, I understand the rest of it. Then I wanted to ask whether or not the numbers corresponding in chart 1.
Whether or not the number in chart 1 is corresponding to what? Hello? Did we lose Yolanda? Or did we lose ourselves? Is anybody there?
Hello?
Oh, good. Who's there?
Hi, Sylvia, it's Anya in Ireland. Can I ask a question, please?
Of course, Anya. Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you, Sylvia. Just in relation to the last lady, I find a lot of people who have headaches have a problem with their gallbladder, and the gallbladder meridian runs up on the head. So very, very often it's a gallbladder issue, liver and gallbladder. And what I found anyway. But my question is, if the main focus when you work with a person and you keep working on the main focus, it seems some people it takes a long time to shift from the main focus. For example, very often it's the gallbladder, and I can't get the main focus to. It still remains the gallbladder, so the gallbladder is still reacting on the pulse, no matter how often I treat it. For example, I'm treating a lady with breast cancer. So her main focus is the gallbladder, but every time I treat her, and I've treated her umpteen times, she still reacts in the gallbladder.
And you have worked with all 4 modules, I'm assuming?
I have, yeah.
Is there... does she have the gallbladder? Because if the gallbladder was removed, then it could be that it will show up.
She has a gallbladder. So I've got her. I've put her on gallbladder cleanses, to try and shift this blockage in the gallbladder.
I would recommend I would continue treating the gallbladder area with the matrix applicator, in the front and back.
Yes.
How big she is. But I would look for other areas, because this body may be stagnant. It will not. Sometimes the body just doesn't want to show you the cards, so to speak. And the
body doesn't want to. Sorry, what was that last thing you said?
It's like the body doesn't want to show you the cards.
Okay.
It's hiding from you, and
yes.
It doesn't want to be discovered. And that is, of course, that goes into the emotional issue of that patient. And cancer is a very tricky one. And I would continue with the handheld applicator on the gallbladder meridian along the head. As you know, Hamer's work, we always find traumas in the head area with cancer patients and wherever that is.
Yes.
Yes. And then use the pulse to navigate from one area to the next. You stay up on the gallbladder area along the ears. And
yes.
And then you continue, you double check. It's like you're playing ball. And you're going to...
Yes, no,
then you're going to chase it until you shift it from the gallbladder.
Yes, I've been trying. I think she's just a particularly difficult case, Sure.
And you've given her Bach's Law remedies?
No, I haven't. That's one thing I haven't done.
Let's add that, because, I find Bach's Law and Ondomet, it's just an incredible combination. And maybe Schuster salts to just support them from a mineral, from a tissue salt point of view, and whatever else you want to give to help. Also maybe you want to support them with suggesting kefir.
Kefir.
Kefir, K-E-F-I-R, to support intestinal functions. Once again, it's the cream of the milk. And it's not milk; it's not processed.
Yes.
So what I mean, what it's like buttermilk, sour milk, every day,
sour milk, yes,
deliciously, so that we change the milieu in the gut.
Yes. Yeah, she's on probiotics and enzymes as well.
Acidophilus, all good, but we need to get more. We need to get good bacteria, more of good bacteria, and no better way to get it into the system than with, I think, with the sour milk, buttermilk, kefir. Let's add that.
Okay. Thank you, Sylvia.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, we have another question from California. Okay, this is from Nicia. Nicia, is that how it's spelled correctly? I hope so. I've met you at one of the advanced training. Hello, great conference. Regarding water, charge it with all frequencies used during session or not. How long does water hold the charge? Refrigerate better or not? Regards. Okay. Once we have changed the charge of the water, it has already been changed. But that doesn't mean we don't have an overlap. You stay next to the water, you laugh, you talk. That's also vibration, and it's going to be stored in the water, so to speak. But the water has changed, and it will stay. The charge of the water will stay. And?
For practical reasons.
at least for 4 weeks. But then, there's so much more other charge coming on that the original on-the-med charge may lose its potency. And also, I would suggest that it's an interesting phenomenon. I cannot explain it, and nor is there any scientific data available. But when you charge the water with module 3 frequencies, when you charge the water with module 3 frequencies, it's an interesting phenomenon. We saw the water spoil much faster. It gets a very strange taste and smell. So I would refrigerate water that has been charged with module 3. Otherwise, it's not necessary to charge. To put in the refrigerator. Okay? That's that question. Okay, do we have another question?
I've got a question. This is David.
Hello, David.
Yeah, I'm having trouble feeling the pulse, and I've tried going faster, I've tried going slower, but feeling people's pulses has not yet came easily for me yet. Any suggestions?
Yeah, that is a good question, and it comes up all the time. You're not alone. It is when your scientific mind is in the way, so to speak. You challenge yourself all the time. Yeah, did I really feel this, yes or no? Could that be the case with you?
Could be. I don't think so, though.
And who are you again?
My name is David. I'm out in Idaho.
David in Idaho. You have just recently been trained?
It's about a year.
About a year. Well, best would be for you to come to the advanced training so we can work with you, have you right there. This is one aspect of on-the-med where, we need to have you right there. That's why training always needs to happen with the people. We can't teach on-the-med online. While we can teach a lot, but in teaching you how to feel the pulse, we just need to have you right there. But what I would suggest is, as a generic rule, use program 47 to open people up, so to speak, or program 15, have your patients drink water because that helps with the conductivity. You yourself drink water, and make sure that you treat yourself as well, so you can vibrate. Your system can better vibrate and receive information. You could feel either the right hand or the left hand, whatever is stronger. Usually the hard side is the stronger side, so stick to that. You don't have to switch from the right to the left when you're in module 1. Stick to the stronger pulse. And rub the area when you're not sure, you're not getting that pulse right, it's too weak for you. Dig in with your thumb, or use your 3 fingers, because sometimes people just work better with the 3 fingers or a different finger. Have you tried that?
I have not.
Please try. Try the water, try the rubbing, try to give an opening, just a 4-minute session with program 47, neck applicator on neck, matrix along the spine. Let that run for 4 minutes, or use program 15 and reduce the time to 4 minutes, and then go in, because then you have already stimulated the system. And then try different areas. Try the three fingers on the pulse. Let me see if Rolf has another suggestion for you, David. One moment.
Hello, David. So
yes.
I would just suggest you use a program for learning, and use programs, and then you feel the pulse, and you move the hand applicator along the body, and just recognize what happens, and then you will more easily see, okay, there's something different, and this is actually the beginning. I saw a lot of people, of course, over the years, and also their hesitation in the beginning. And this is, some people, they just do it, and others, they have, hesitation in the beginning. But you have to understand, this is, to not feel or to have problems with feeling the pulse has something to do with your insight. your mind and your feeling. So often with male people, this is more common. So you feel something, and then your mind says, "Oh, maybe I have to retest." And this is the beginning of the end. It's like in a relationship. Two people, maybe married people, couple. The woman is more the feeling in this example, and the male, the man, more the mind. So the woman feels something, and then the husband says, "Oh, can't be." So in the first place, it may be okay, but if this happens again, at some point, the woman, or let's say the feeling, doesn't tell you anything anymore because it's afraid to be judged. And this is a mechanism which happens in ourselves. So if you are not able to, you have to let go. The relationship in yourself or between a couple has to be. The feeling says, "Oh, there is something," and then the mind says, "Huh, that's interesting." And then, it's like positive feedback, and before it was a negative feedback. So...
Ralph, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah?
It's Grace Provenzano. My husband had that exact situation, and we just were recently trained, and I got the pulse right away. And so did my daughter, but my husband has a hard time getting my pulse. And so is that a common thing with men, or?
It is more common with men.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are more trained to analyze with our minds and to criticize ourselves. And that's what we have to overcome.
Okay.
And so as soon as we start to overcome, we will feel the difference. So as soon as we acknowledge the little signs we get back from the body, this is eye-opening, And so if this starts to happen, this is then the positive feedback loop, and you will feel better as more you do it. And at some point, it's so normal, like looking out of the window and seeing a bird or whatever, because you don't question it. You just recognize, and that's all it is.
Exactly.
Okay, I hope we answered that question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
You're welcome. And come to advanced training so we can work with you. And we have worked with so many people. And eventually they all get the pulse. They all do. So don't be hard on yourself. Just use programs. If you are the one that takes care at that time, then just use programs intuitively. Pick anything. They're all good. They're all therapeutic. Most important is so maybe as Rolf said, try to feel the pulse reaction while you scan, and have somebody on the other side confirming what you may be feeling. That's important, to have somebody on the other side of the pulse. Have one on the right, you on the left, for example. Okay. So, one moment.
I just heard, Sylvia saying, I would just add, don't be hard on yourself. So if you feel the pulse, if you scan the body and you don't feel anything, then just acknowledge this and do it again next time. But if you don't feel it today, just, okay, I don't feel, there is nothing today. And next time you do it again, and then you will maybe feel something, and then you acknowledge this. So this is a very important thing, to be as honest as you can to yourself and take out the judgment. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Do we have another question from the audience?
This is Tom from Michigan.
Hello, Tom.
I had a quick question about, well, I don't know how quick it's going to be, but it's about Lyme's. There's a young girl we've been running on this machine, and she occasionally feels disoriented or she gets headaches, which I'm not sure if that's a part of the Lyme's itself or if the machine is having an adverse effect on her. So I was wondering, if she does start to feel, disoriented and not very well, is it going to take away the effect of the program I'm running if we let her take a break for a minute from it?
Oh, that's a good question. That does happen sometimes, and it could be because of detoxifying maybe too rapidly, or just feeling the effects of the detoxification. So generically, we could place the matrix applicator under her feet. I would also shorten the therapy time, and I would always test them. I don't know if you heard me say before, on children. And I always test the time on children. I always test the intensity. And we can do that in programs, and we can do this in all 4 modules. Children and animals respond much faster. While we can never harm anybody, since this is non-invasive, we don't want them to feel bad. We don't want them to have a headache. We want to be as gentle as we possibly can. You could also maybe stop for a moment, have a drink, a cup of water, and then continue the session. It will not impact the effects, but it will just impact maybe her confidence in what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be? Yeah. Oh, you're welcome.
Sylvia.
Yes.
Is that under the feet and the neck applicator on the neck?
Yes, correct. And often we like to place the matrix applicator under the feet. All the acupuncture points and meridians, of course, are part of the feet. And especially when there are head issues, when you place it under the feet, you pull it sort of out. The focus is not the head. The head is already hurting. The head is already inflamed. So go away from the head and pull it out on the other side of the body.
Oh, nice. Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I'll take this silent moment to say we're at the end of our...
Hello. Oh, Sylvia, I was going to ask you a question.
Yes, who is this?
This is Mary.
Hello, Mary.
In Louisiana.
Yes.
I sent in a request to Christine, but I wasn't sure if she had passed it on to you, if this is something she wanted to discuss with you personally or on this call.
Oh, I don't know. I have read through all of them, I thought.
Well,
maybe,
this might not, she might not have thought. Okay, well, I have a friend who is using a new device from Israel for his brain cancer. He's gone through chemo and radiation and surgery, and the brain cancer's back, and so now he's doing a clinical trial, and it's a machine that sends frequency to the tumors in the brain, and he has these electrodes that are attached all over his head, and every day they replace them because they have the little sticky pads that, come loose because his hair grows, or, the oil on his scalp and stuff. And so he's already getting the frequency that they are giving him, and I sent you the link where you can look at this machine that's being tried with just a select.
We'll take a look at it, but it doesn't sound that it's similar to what OnDemand does. But go ahead.
No, it's not. It's not similar. But what I was wondering was if there would, if he came over when he did not have the machine running. I didn't know if the two machines, like if he had all the electrodes on his head that were giving his head his stimulation to the tumors to burst and break apart, if I could run the OnDemand concurrently with it, or should I use the OnDemand when he is in between changing out the electrodes and there's nothing on his head?
Mary, that's a very good question. I have Rolf answer it.
The treatment of OnDemand is very different. So I wouldn't really compare the two. Mm-hmm. Of course you can support him the electrodes from this other treatment they don't affect your on-the-med application. So because on-the-med uses inductance, so it's not relating to the metal electrodes.
Okay. Well, I'd appreciate it if Christine would pass that on to y'all and maybe take a look at that, especially a little bit of the science behind these machines, just to make sure. I don't want to send too much in at one time. I don't know if he can or not, but he's wanting, anything, and I'm willing to help him, with it. So.
Yeah. Okay. We will.
Thank you very much.
Get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Any other questions at this time? All right. Well, we have received so many questions. Well, that was, I believe, a very healthy conference call, and we will do more of them in the future. Very important to stay connected and to have you as educated as you possibly can be. We always learn from your questions. So I'm currently actually looking for cases relating to irritable bowel syndrome or irritable bowel disorder. So if you would please contact me directly at sylviabinder@onthemed.net. I would appreciate any cases you can shoot my way. Irritable bowel syndrome is what I'm looking for. And you could also, of course, call me at 845-534-0456. And my direct extension is 111. Now, I want to remind you to allot time on your calendar for our smoking cessation and advanced training happening June 11th, 12th, and 13th in Newburgh, New York. We have Catherine Hedich-Jensen flying in from Denmark, and she will be leading the smoking cessation course on Friday. Then Dr. Kessler will be running the advanced training with his wife Antje, the medical director Karin, and our own team from On-The-Med. And you'll be soon receiving more information regarding this advanced training and smoking cessation course. Now, if you have not done so already, sign up for the AFRAM Suzanne Summers webinar taking place next week on, what day is it, the 9th of March. Just email webinar@worldhealth.net or go onto AFRAM's website, scrolling down on their main site and go to the right lower corner. You will find the spot. You will see Suzanne's picture. You can sign up, and it also gives you the dial-in instructions. Our next conferences will be at AFRAM in Orlando mid-April, followed by ACAM in San Diego end of April. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. You are an important part of our company, and you are our messengers out there. You're the warriors in the field using this technology with all of your other good components to help patients lead healthy and happy lives. We wish you a good day. Be well, laugh much, rest plenty, and enjoy every present moment, since this is all we truly have. I look forward to speaking with you soon and look forward to receiving your patient cases relating to IBS. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.